This is the MyMichelleLive podcast.
Weekend Review, a look back at the week and forward to the weekend. Music, movies, goodies, and more. It's MyMichelleLive Weekend Review. Here's Michelle.
Welcome to MyMichelleLive's Weekend Review, where we're going to look at the week that took place, some of the news stories that happened, and get you plugged into some entertainment to take you right into the weekend. Let's look back at the week in review with the guy who puts the razzle-dazzle in news. It's the Riz Report.
Let's review the week. The Riz Report with Adam Rizzieri.
With Adam Rizzieri. Hey, my friend.
Hey, Michelle. Happy Friday.
Happy
Got my blue on.
Weekend. Yeah, right? Happy Blue Friday. He's awesome.
Blue Friday, baby.
You have to be in Seattle to kind of get that inside joke. Even though Adam isn't, he maybe you identify as a Seattleite. I don't know.
Well, sometimes I identify as a Seattleite. Yeah, sometimes I identify as a Dolphin. It kind of depends on the day,
Well, there you go. So looking back at the news, let's get to some of the big international news stories that happened this week. This is coming out of the defense world, where the U.S. has ordered airstrikes in Syria. I have a bit of a soundbite on
Police, where a U.S. military attack sends an unmistakable message to Iran. The overnight airstrikes targeted Iranian-backed militia members in eastern Syria near the Iraq border.
So big news there. Not very long in office, and already we are going in.
It's interesting. It was April of 2017 that Jen Psaki tweeted basically a question asking, what legal authority do we have to wage airstrikes? She was recognizing that Assad is a brutal dictator, but Syria is a sovereign country. And so really the only difference now in 2021 is a change of president, right? Now, Trump, when he did it, not okay. But now that Biden's in there, we're firing some Psakis at Syria. And I'm just going to call missiles Psakis from now on. And we Psaki'd Syria. And I'm really kind of wondering why. And apparently it was, obviously an act of retaliation for an attack that took place on U.S. assets really close to the Iraq and Syria border. But, there's this question of, at what point do we engage in military conflicts? And when we're going to anger really our international adversaries, being Russia and Iran, let's recognize that Syria is an ally of these nations, right? They're not exactly our friends. So at what point are we going to kind of look back in our rearview mirror and say, oh my gosh, we are now in a military conflict. We're in a war that we really don't want to be in. It's I think a big concern that really with the last administration, we made a very strong effort to disengage from foreign conflicts that literally resulted in the loss of thousands of American lives.
And how odd is that? Because Trump was billed as a warmongering, dangerous president, and yet during his administration we had relative peace. We heard almost nothing. You remember that old phrase, the old enemy of ISIS and the Taliban? Did you really hear any mention of ISIS or the Taliban in the last maybe two and a half years?
No, nothing. And I think it's because, well, honestly, conservative presidents get kind of a bad rap for being hawks. But the reality is historically speaking, more often than not, it's a Democratic president that brings us towards a military conflict. In the very early days of the Trump administration, we had really a little bit of conflict with Syria. That was his first big airstrike, was actually against a series of targets in Syria. But it was a very isolated event, and there was a purpose behind it, and it was to get rid of ISIS. Around that same period of time, tensions could not have been higher with North Korea. We remember President Trump calling North Korea's leader Little Rocket Man. So we were literally coming off the Obama administration, potentially looking at nuclear warfare with a very, very hostile nation, being North Korea. So the efforts that were taken very early on were efforts towards peace. And sometimes you have to sort of puff your chest out and act tough to get the other guy to back down. And so a lot of the rhetoric that came from the president around that same period of time was designed specifically to put on a strong front and really to show, hey, you know what? We are the United States. You need to back down or else. The idea of nuclear warfare is really, really scary. And, Michelle, we also just this week saw 36 Democratic legislators ask President Biden to relinquish his power to make nuclear decisions. They're talking about taking away the nukes from Biden.
Yeah, right? Okay. So my question is, what do they know about Joe Biden that we don't know, that all of a sudden they're going, oh, okay, wait a minute, maybe it shouldn't be in his hands? I mean, do you remember this sound? I'm going to play the soundbite. Do you remember Robin Williams coming down on Joe Biden a few years ago? Did you hear this? Take a listen. Wait. She's got to find it again. Give me just a second. There you go. Come on. Oh, she can't find it. That's okay. We'll get to it. It's so funny. Gotta love Robin Williams.
We still have comedy, though. We still have great comedy out there. There's always rambling Joe Biden. Joe says that even people with Tourette's go, no. No. What is going on? Joe is like her uncle who's on a new drug and hasn't got the dosage right. I'm proud to work with Barack America. He's not a superhero, you idiot. Come here. When FDR was on television, there was no TV back then. Come here, Joe. Sit down.
Oh my gosh. And what I like about our conversations is, look, we're
just
not
inviting
here.
disaster.
Oops, sorry about that. We're not here, you and I, Adam, to champion one side or the other. We're kind of equal opportunity offenders to a degree, which is what the media really should be. And that's why it was hilarious to me back in Barack Obama's era when he was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, when he hadn't done anything. They just said, well, you're a good guy, let's just give it to you. And when recently Trump was nominated for a peace prize, it was laughed away like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? And yet we have had when you look at it, what's scary to me is, does that mean that we've all been a little brainwashed? Like, have we been a little manipulated? Can we not really see clearly? And it really bothers me on a personal level because some of that I've bought into.
Brainwash? Nah, no way. Are you trying to say that the media might try to lead us down a specific decision path to maybe not think for ourselves?
Well, what was I thinking? Never mind. That was silly of me.
But that's a real thought. I mean, is the media really being used as a propaganda machine for those in power? And if so, who are the ones in power that big media is listening to? I think that's a real concern. To think that, ultimately what Trump's decisions might have been during his tenure were decisions that were anything other than putting America first and really kind of creating more of a peaceful and prosperous environment for all of us. The data just doesn't support anything more than that. So it's very interesting now that Pelosi and the Democrats, they never tried to take the nukes from Trump. But like you asked, what do they know that we don't know? Yeah. Oh my goodness. I don't know, but I really feel like we need to know. I mean, this is a guy who was just elected president of the United States, and it's February. Like, it just started, right? So, yeah. Oh my goodness. We need to be asking some serious questions here. And they're not questions that can just be circled back on. Jen Psaki, she needs to give us some real answers about what's going on. Because if we're kind of looking at now decision-making, especially decision-making as sensitive as this, the question of nuke it or don't nuke it. I mean, if we have an oligarchy that is easily influenced by special interests and certain agendas that we don't really know much about, that's a huge problem. We elect a president for a reason, and part of the title is commander-in-chief. So if we just elected a guy that can't make a wise decision on how to respect the responsibilities that come with nuclear powers, guys, we got to have a different president ASAP, and whether that's, God bless America, but whether that's Kamala Harris or the next person, we have to have a president that is qualified to make that decision for all of us. Because there is a theory that's called mutually assured destruction. And mutually assured destruction is why we are alive today, frankly. It's a theory that got us through the Cold War. And it's a political science concept that basically says, if you nuke me before your nuke lands on my territory, I'm going to nuke you, and then we're both going to be dead. And so we have the theory of mutually assured destruction as a thing that has kept us safe from hostile nuclear powers. So if we're now going to give that power to an oligarchy or a collection of individuals that maybe their decision-making process is slow, or maybe it's not really adequate, or there's a lack of integrity behind it, we really kind of handicap ourselves in a way that we really shouldn't be.
Our live stream was a little slow getting up, so if you're just joining us, we are in the midst of our Riz report, and we're looking at some of the news that made news this week. Now, we were talking a bit about airstrike on Syria and how there may be media bias out there. Adam and I are kind of sitting in the middle, kind of going, okay, wait, what's fair here should be fair here, kind of like equal opportunity offenders. But the big news story is that there's at least 30 Democrats who are saying, President Biden really needs to not be the only person with authority to launch nuclear weapons. And you're going, okay, they didn't, as you pointed out, Adam, they didn't even mention that during Trump's administration. What the heck do they know about Joe Biden that we don't know? And that's really just to get you caught up. It's a little bit unsettling, just I guess, to say the least. And of course, I hearkened back. I'm going to just play it one more time because I love Robin Williams. I hearkened back to this sound.
We still have comedy, though. We still have great comedy out there. There's always rambling Joe Biden. Joe says that even people with Tourette's go, no. No. What is going on? Joe is like her uncle who's on a new drug and hasn't got the dosage right. I'm proud to work with Barack America. He's not a superhero, you idiot. Come here. When FDR was on television, there was no TV back then. Come here, Joe. Sit down.
Now, that's not to say that he's not a good guy. A lot of people voted for him because he's a good guy.
Just inviting disaster.
But really, no, I really am. I have a problem with my sound.
My wife and I
swear
watch
to
football.
goodness. I swear to goodness. Me and my soundboard. At any rate, as we look at what's happening in the news, Adam, and we see some of the bias there, it can get to a dangerous point. I mean, there's a point where we go, oh, come on, and we laugh at it. But when it gets to the point where we're being manipulated by propaganda, that's when it gets really scary. And I wanted to talk about some of the media bias that we're seeing, the double standard, which is dangerous. There's been reports that some news services have let go or pulled back their fact checkers since Biden came in office, because why would we want to, check facts?
Nah. It's like the circle back soundboard, right? It'll get to us, Right. Yeah, but it's really, really concerning to see how the media bias is influencing the discussions that we're talking about. I mean, let's look back to when Justice Kavanaugh was being confirmed. Mm-hmm. There were some allegations that were serious allegations, but there was, there's not always a fire behind the smoke that we're seeing, right? Sometimes it's just not quite there. Right now, we're talking about sexual allegations that are very serious in respect of Governor Cuomo.
Okay, I have a soundbite on that.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who is already facing criticism for part of his response to the pandemic, faces new trouble this morning over detailed allegations of inappropriate behavior in the workplace. The latest accusations come from former aide Lindsey Boyan, who wrote, "Andrew Cuomo abused his power as governor to sexually harass me, just as he had done with so many other women."
So that comes from CBS This Morning, which was nice, but I did have to search a little bit for that news story.
It's nice that they said something, right? I mean, because there has been deafening silence from the mainstream media, ABC, MSNBC, and naturally CNN. I mean, it's like the guy's brother works at one of these outlets. I don't know. What? I mean, it's right. I mean, so this is really kind of concerning, though, because here we have a serious allegation from a professional, Lindsey Boylan, a former aide to Governor Cuomo. Her claims are extremely serious. She's talking about discussions of playing strip poker from Governor Cuomo. The guy even made a lewd reference, allegedly, a lewd reference kind of talking back to Bill Clinton's use of cigars, which was extremely controversial, inappropriate touching, very, very uncomfortable advances, including a kiss on the lips. So that is not how you act in the workplace. That is not how you expect somebody in a position of authority to ever treat you. And so here we have a staffer who is presumably working her way with integrity to the top of her ability, or to the best of her ability. And now she's making these allegations because, frankly, it's the right thing to do when that kind of thing is happening. But the media is trying to wash over it, leading up to or I guess in the middle of COVID, when it was at its worst, there was more activity like this. There was CNN's show Cuomo Primetime, led by Chris Cuomo, at the same time that we had nursing home patients and New York's elderly dying because of decisions made by Cuomo. We've got two brothers, Andrew and Chris, on CNN on almost a weekly and nightly basis, being really chummy, talking about who mom loves more, and this and that, And so just to kind of see how the media has
brothers
lost...
instead of news right there.
Exactly. And so why isn't the media covering the extremely concerning death of loved ones, of people that are fathers and, grandparents and mothers? And why aren't we talking about this disproportionate loss of life coming from America's seniors? These people are national treasures just for the history that they retain and the experiences that they've led to get us to where America is here in 2021. So why aren't we concerned about protecting them? Why are we talking about who mom loves more? And it's because the media wants to paint a picture, and they want to kind of gloss over the fact that the way New York handled the entire COVID pandemic was much worse than what we saw in states like Florida and Texas and other leaders that were able to actually protect their populations.
If we
nobody's
really
perfect
cared,
during a pandemic.
Right? That's true. But if we really cared, we'd kind of weigh all of this and say, okay, how does this work? How did this not work? What can we do moving forward, since we're in uncharted territory? So you really look for the media to do their job. And that's why a week ago, I sat on this for a week to kind of see where this would go. And it was something that to me was one of the oddest biases in reporting. And it came it came and it went relatively untalked about. But imagine for a moment, take Joe Biden's voice out and put Trump in, and imagine what it would have looked like in the news.
Portion is a lot of people don't know how to register. Not everybody in the community, in the Hispanic and the African American community, particularly in rural areas that are distant and or inner city districts, know how to get online.
Smack my head. Now, there may be some truth to older people not knowing how, or if you've not used the internet, okay. But that has nothing to do with being Hispanic or black. You could be a older white guy in poverty and still not know how to use the internet. Or, but if for one moment Trump would have said that, it would have been everywhere and everyone would become unglued. He is a racist. Why isn't Joe Biden a racist? And this is not the only questionable thing he said concerning race. I mean, I'm Hispanic. I've been able to figure out the internet. Thank you very much. Maybe I'm the exception.
I don't think so. I know some incredible web developers that come from Latin countries or are just Latin Americans. I mean, it's ridiculous to say something like that. And it's just one example of many. I mean, can you imagine eulogizing one of the top leaders of the KKK and being celebrated for it? It's shocking to me. Biden did that. Biden did that. And so I don't know. I never saw Trump do anything like that. I never saw him in company with people that were known terrible racists. Never saw that.
Not actually.
No, and not even before his time in office. I've seen him with You know what? He was actually at Chelsea Clinton's wedding. I've seen him exist in a very cordial way with folks on the left and the right, folks of different ethnicities, religious backgrounds, and sexual orientations.
Now, we're not, seriously, we're not here trying to champion Trump. We're here really trying to say, find some balance, people, and be honest. Because even when you research some of the accusations of, well, Trump said this, you look at it in context within 4 minutes of something that we've taken and played the soundbite to death on, you're looking at and going, oh, actually, he was kind of saying the opposite. I have been duped by that at times, listening to that and going, oh my gosh, really? Come on. Just like listening to Biden there and then listening in context, you get a better picture.
Well,
now, Joe
and just
Biden
to add to that, Michelle.
Go ahead.
Well, just to add to that, let's just look back to the Emmy Awards, right? So the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences awarded Governor Cuomo with an Emmy Award for a series of, it was 111 TV appearances, his daily briefings, to discuss kind of what was going on with COVID, what's the latest, what we should be looking out for. He was using his platform to really get past what was actually happening in the nursing homes, but then also to improve his position, his national platform. The guy was kind of eyeballing discussions of, well, maybe I run for president at some point in the future. He was using his platform to build his name and then also to sell a book. So, how is it that we give a guy like that an Emmy Award, which is now being discussed? Like, I guess people are saying, hey, you know what? That was probably inappropriate. We should probably not award him the Emmy. There's some stuff going down that we got to talk about. But at the same time,
God for those thinking people.
But then we can splice a soundbite from Trump and cut the context out of it to make it sound really bad. I mean, you could do that to anybody.
Yeah, you absolutely can. And I'm sorry, most of Hollywood is not all that bright and certainly no brighter than the general population. There are some real, maybe even left-thinking people who are brilliant. I think if you listen to Ben Affleck, he actually has a brain. I would love to discuss things with him, I think he has...
Sign me up for Alan Dershowitz. I love that guy.
Come on, But as a whole, we have this class of people that tell you what to think, and we know so much more because we can pretend like we're smart when we have a script in front of us. This is where we're at. We have allowed this to happen because we've become fat and lazy in our prosperity, and then we're looking at people like Cuomo who get a free pass that may be running for office. You know who else is running for office? Or there's rumors in 2024, Candace Owens, and there's been a resurgence of Trump.
You know what? 2024 is going to be very interesting. We've got CPAC going on right now. And, I think we're going to hear some forward-looking statements. And I think Candace Owens, she's a very bright individual who, Michelle, we're not sitting here trying to talk up Trump. We don't have to do that. He was already president one time, and he's got a lot of other people that love him. We're just sitting here trying to speak truth, and Candace Owens is someone who does that. She could be a great voice for people. But you know what? Let's talk about, all right, I don't know if Herschel Walker listens to your show or not, but I really like what I hear from Herschel Walker. He's another influential figure who speaks truth, and I'd be curious to see what his thoughts might be on a future run for office. He's got a really, really logical head on his shoulders. And 2024 is not that far away, but it's far enough away to where people who are not thinking about running right now, maybe next month they're thinking about it.
Okay, he might. I now nominate Adam. I think Adam Rizzieri would be
never say never. I mean, I was actually back in college. I was class president.
Hey, okay. Well, you've got more experience than some. And
I was a 2-term senator as well. Who knows, right? I ensured that the campus that I went to, that we improved lighting to improve campus safety. That's I care about the community and safety. Sign me up.
There you go. I honestly, sometimes I wish they would just pick people just from everyday America and just say, hey, you just do a little term here, because I just think an everyday American could do so much better than career politicians.
Right.
We really need to
term
think
limits,
about
right?
that. I don't want to diss Joe. I mean, sometimes Joe Biden, he puts his foot in his mouth. He does what I think are stupid things. But when it comes down to it, he's been in office probably as long as you and I have been alive. And
half a century.
We haven't seen...
I think 47 years, Michelle.
Yeah. So
47 or so years. And you're exactly right. I mean, give me half a century in office. I'm sure I could do at least one thing or two, at least. But what I do think back to, though, are honestly some unforgivable things. The way he treated Justice Thomas during his confirmation hearings was just shameful. We have seen Joe Biden be a politician, middle of the road Joe. Right now, he's so far from that. He's not even trying to work with the right. He's just not. And so,
and to be honest, the right's not trying to work with the left either. I mean, get over yourselves. This is not how we run a country. The right and left actually need each other, not the extreme whack jobs, kind of stuff, but, right leaning, left leaning. We need each other to balance out things, to get good ideas. We think that everything is settled and we have a be all know all ownership of the truth, but that's just not the way it is. We really need to work together. It's not happening. And you see it with the free speech issue. I wanted to get to some of those in our final minutes together. Free speech is under attack. The White House is looking at changing a lot of phrases that you can use. There are words like you can no longer say breastfeeding or breast milk. It has to be chest milk, right? And Coca-Cola, there was a whistleblower that brought this to a national attention. Come on.
Oh my goodness. Are you serious?
Yeah.
So basically, so the Coca-Cola thing is crazy to me. Just personally, I know a lot of people that work at Coca-Cola that are truly not racist people. They're truly fantastic people. The diversity training that Coca-Cola staff was basically given access to is so far from being, quote, anti-racist. Basically, this diversity training, it was a LinkedIn slide share that was offered as exposure to anti-racist training. And I say that with quotes. Some of the text inside this training program, it starts off, and I'll just say it's talking about being, quote, less white. Now, first of all, let me just stop with that first sentence. Quote, be less white. That should really be less racist. Okay, so in this training program, they basically created a bunch of content and replaced the word racist with the word white. The danger there is you can replace the word white with anything: Hispanic, Black, Asian. Be less of that, be less of this. Now, in this particular program,
be less Christian, be less Muslim.
And to be less white, by the way.
I wish we could be less stupid. Let me just tell you, I think this is the new KKK. It's the kind, caring Karens that have this white savior complex. And what that really is saying is that you stupid Black people are unable. You have an inability to take care of yourself, but we're going to come in and we're going to help you. This comes from a mindset. I'm going to see if I can play a sound bite of this. Take a listen. Well, we'll see if we can get that. Aha.
Illiterate on the topic of race. Be white is to see oneself as a unique, special individual. And every moment that I spend in white space, I am being deeply reinforced. I think white people should remove that phrase from their vocabulary. I'm not racist. It's not convincing to Black people. Okay, now what do I do? And that question has bothered me for I don't think white people really want to know what to do unless it's just keep being friendly. It's a little bit arrogant for folks who have never in their life thought deeply about this. Not focusing on race is what keeps us divided. The challenge I want to offer my fellow white people: how have I been shaped by the forces of racism?
That's from she wrote a book on this whiteness thing. What is it that a white woman has to come in and say, yeah, you know what, this is how Black people feel, and this is what who made her the spokesperson for a third of America?
And who made her the ambassador of white people, by the way? I mean, she literally says that research shows that by the age of 3 to 4, children understand that it is better to be white. I guarantee you, when I was personally 3 and 4, that was so far from my mind.
And I'm going to guarantee you, when I was 3, 4, or in elementary school, in an all-white school, I was one of only 2 Hispanics and 2 Hispanic families in our community. I didn't even know the difference. I didn't even know that there was anything different about me. And I actually grew up with a sense of, I'm just fine. So
sure, you're just a person, right?
Yeah.
You're just a person. Now, this training basically, the idea of be less racist, right? Be less oppressive, be less arrogant, be less certain, be less defensive, be less ignorant, be more humble, listen, break with apathy.
Those are great ideas, though. Those are great ideas for all Americans.
The problem, though, is that they lead up to this with saying to be less white, you be all these things. Now, that's where it's a problem, right? The message should be to be less racist, be these things.
Because let's just get to the real issue, Adam, and that's that there is not scientifically, and once again, we cherry pick what we want to look at scientifically. Science shows us that there is no division in race. There is one race, the human race. And if we have hate and if we dislike someone, it's a human condition. Sometimes it has to do with the color of your skin. Sometimes it has to do with you just being a jerk and I don't like you. Sometimes it has a whole lot to do, but it's a human condition. It's a human race issue. You want to have a seminar and learn us on how we can be better people, that's great. But let's not break it down to race, because that makes it what? What's the phrase? Racism.
Well, let me learn you real fast, Michelle. Let me learn you real fast how this works. It's crazy. It's absolutely racism. I think the thing that makes our country great truly is tolerance for diversity and tolerance and appreciation for differences. Being exposed to different cultures and religions is what makes life awesome, and it makes it interesting. Can you imagine if everything was just literally the same? I mean, shoot, I think it's great to have diversity. And
heck yeah.
It's interesting, though, businesses are having such a hard time truly grasping what diversity and inclusion should mean, because the way they're doing it is they're doing the exact opposite of what they should be doing.
No,
and what
because
they should
people
be
end up feeling resentment. You feel resentment if you're a white male, especially in America. And I have to tell you, I'm a woman of color, and it is not doing anything for people of color when you say, everybody hates you and you can hate others because, well, they hated you first, and it's not racism and it's impossible no, it's eating you alive. It is a human condition of hate, and it eats you alive. Don't play into it. Don't buy into it. Be better.
And I will just kind of throw one more thing out there. So, I own a small digital agency, and I think the thing that makes America great is competition and competitiveness. So we see big companies trying to make these mandates around diversity and inclusion, but they're doing it the wrong way. I have a very diverse company, and my diverse company has people from different cultures, backgrounds, and religions. That is a competitive advantage for us. There is an economic incentive to having a diverse business, and it's diverse thought, it's diverse problem solving. We come up with more creative solutions faster. We come up with better solutions faster because we do value diversity and inclusion. And I guarantee you, we're not doing it by teaching Robin DiAngelo.
Okay.
We're doing it with our actions.
There you
go.
We're
doing it with actions.
And something we were talking about is some of the Equity Act, for example, and how that's going to affect sports. I asked the question in our Sports Timeout broadcast, if the U.S. women's national team, which rocks, I mean, they're awesome. They're going to be bringing home the championship there with the She Believes tournament. I just know it, right? I mean, goal differential, their play, it's excellent, right? But how many of those women would make a U.S. national team if we took the male and female out? Because that's really what we're leading to. Because what if you don't identify as male or female? Where's my team? What if so really it should just be a national team. If there really is no difference, then let's just make it all one and stop dividing people.
You bring up a strong question. I've been a huge fan of, frankly, women's soccer for a long time now. When I was in high school, the women's team at my high school, They just happened to win state like back to back to back to back. They were incredible. And so I've been a big fan of women's athletics for as long as I guess it's been as long as I've been alive, right? Watching them do what they do is fantastic because it's just fun to watch.
It's fun.
And it's fun.
We're brutal.
Yeah, it's fun to see, your ladies do their thing. It's like we're going to crush it on the field and then we're going to, hang out afterwards and do whatever. But to see kind of like this rejection of, well, let me ask you this, a rejection or a confusion between biological sex and gender, right? Mm-hmm. So biological sex, male, female, you're born with certain hardware, right? But then gender, it's how you identify. And so now we have the Equality Act, which passed, by the way, for the second time. First time it passed was in 2019. Likely won't pass the Senate, but if it were to pass the Senate, it's actually going to infringe on religious liberties. The Equality Act is already kind of doing something that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Fair Housing Acts already do when it comes to protecting the LGBTQ community. Now, the trouble here is we're seeing the language of the existing Equality Act actually secularize religious entities. So, with public institutions, you're going to have conflict and issues when it comes to a biological male who identifies as a trans female, or a trans woman, I should say, using, or trans girl, by the way, using the locker room at their middle school or high school or college. So you're going to now have trans women with different hardware in a private locker room with biological women with different hardware.
And if there isn't a difference, why aren't we seeing people who were assigned, is this how I say it? They were assigned female at birth, but then decide to be male later. Why don't we see them on sports teams?
It's a great question. Why don't we see them on sports teams?
I think there's a few women, a very few, who might be able to make the grade, but we just don't really see it wide scale. We wouldn't see it wide scale, and it's a affront.
It is a front. I think that there's a lot of honest discussions that need to take place around the Equality Act. I think that we're going to see...
You put it well, gender versus identity. You can biological hardware,
biological sex and
versus
gender, right?
Gender. That's how you put it.
Yeah.
I think that it's one thing if you want to say, look, if you have these identity issues, we can talk about that. But this is what your hardware is.
Right. Now,
boom.
It's already illegal to discriminate based on that in the workplace and for housing. The problem with the Equality Act is that it is not truly an Equality Act. It truly does infringe on liberties that we already have through the Constitution. Exactly right. It's a preference act. And so to secularize religious entities, religious organizations now have to act like they are Starbucks or any big retailer or any business with a common public facility, right? You got a problem there too. Also, let's talk about hospitals, right? You have hospitals that are affiliated with the church. Those hospitals under the Equality Act would have to perform medical procedures that are counter to religious ideology. You're going to have religious hospitals performing gender reassignment surgeries. That's going to be a big issue, and it is
and that's
a
why
total
it's not
overstep of religious freedom.
It just can't. I mean, I think that we have enough balance on the Supreme Court that even if it were to pass the Senate, it's just not going to go. There's a problem there. But
Michelle, let me ask you this though.
Yeah,
we have sanctuary cities, right? We have sanctuary cities. Yes. Are we going to have sanctuary cities for Second Amendment rights? You know what? You're not taking my guns. Are we going to have sanctuary cities now for religious freedom as well? Like, you're not going to infringe on my religious rights. I live in this city.
I don't see that happening. I don't see anyone allowing that to happen. And I'll end this part of the conversation with this on my end. I was watching a television commercial last night for an HIV medication, and it said, this may not be good for those who are assigned female at birth. If there really isn't a difference, then why are you saying that, women shouldn't take it? There is a difference. We know that that with Ambien, where I had a friend who was on a cruise ship back in the day. She took Ambien and Dramamine. She found herself outside of her cruise ship door, butt naked, and talking to invisible people, and it has that effect on women. Women have had fatalities in driving because Ambien works differently with our biology. There is a difference. If we don't recognize it, we put people in danger.
It sounds like you're talking about science.
Oh, oops. My bad. Finally, since we're going to be talking entertainment in just a couple of minutes with Adam Holz, I wanted to take on an entertainment story that you sent me. I didn't even know about this. Lady Gaga, this is breaking news, everyone. Stop the press. Everything else that we've talked about is nothing compared to this. Lady Gaga's dogs are missing.
You know
Lord
what? They are missing. Now, Lady Gaga, I definitely have some... I have some... I would like to have some conversations with her about certain issues, but I do respect her for her talent.
I'd love to talk to her about her talent. She is crazy talented. She is
Those
amazing.
Pipes are incredible.
Yeah,
they are incredible.
Brilliant.
Now, this is a thing, though.
Although some of her songs are kind of goofy, I think she's better than. But that's just personal. She's amazing.
Well, actually, I went to high school with a guy who was in her Poker Face music video.
Oh, well, okay.
Way back. But so here's the thing with Gaga, right? Now, I'm a dog lover. Dogs are amazing. They add so much value to our lives. I've got pugs myself. I have a rescue terrier. Actually, one of my pugs came from a pit bull rescue. Gaga, she has these three beautiful French bulldogs. And this is a thing that's kind of been increasing. But basically, since the pandemic started, there has been a shortage in supply of French bulldogs on the market. So a lot of people in America love the French bulldog breed. It's the fourth most popular dog in the United States. In Hollywood this week, her dog walker was basically walking her three French bulldogs at night in a very affluent part of Hollywood. And then all of a sudden, a white sedan rolls up, two guys jump out with a gun, and they start fighting with her dog walker to try and steal her dogs. And so this guy is walking three dogs, and he's been her dog walker now for a long period of time. He actually moved to LA from New York with Gaga. These guys basically shot her dog walker, stole two of her French bulldogs. One of them took off, and the dog walker thankfully is now in stable condition at the hospital. The guy was shot in the chest. Now, French bulldogs sell most often for $3,000 to $5,000. It's not a cheap dog. The thing is the increase in instances of dog theft have gone up dramatically because, especially with a French bulldog, you can steal a 28-pound dog or two, and you could sell that dog for about $2,000 or so pretty easily and pretty quickly. So Gaga is now offering a $500,000 reward for the safe return of her dogs. No questions asked. They've actually got the LAPD homicide unit working on the case. The FBI actually was working on the case as well because Gaga performed at Biden's inauguration. And so I think we're all just hoping for a safe return of her two adorable little French bulldogs. The third one that got away was returned safely. Gaga's in Rome right now filming a movie, so she's been kind of watching this from a distance. But, guys, if you have dogs that you love, make sure that you are careful about how you treat your dogs. Obviously, don't walk them at night unless you have somebody with you or it's a well-lit, supervised environment, a lot of people around. Dog theft is on the rise right now.
Can I make a suggestion? If you have a rescue mutt, nobody really wants to steal them. And I got to tell you, they're the best dogs on the planet. Best dogs I have ever had are the dogs who, maybe even the older dogs, over 7 years in age, they understand. They've been through it. They're grateful. They come trained oftentimes, and they are amazing. Yeah, they're probably a mix of God knows what, and people aren't going to be as interested in walking off with your dogs, but you're going to have a rewarding life and you're going to save an animal. So I
very
think,
much so.
And there you go.
My terrier literally showed up off the streets in Dallas, and the vet said he was about a week away from dying, and we nursed him back to health over about a year. And now he's a great dog. Our pug from the pit bull rescue in Houston, she was a very anxious dog, but honestly, dogs have different characteristics and personalities. When you get to know a dog, they are I mean, you cannot replace that kind of friendship. It's incredible.
There you go. There you go. Adam Rizzieri is our man for our Riz reports, and you can catch him here. And of course, your business, your chief marketing officer at Agency Partner Interactive, and we'll have a link as well where you are listening to this broadcast. We'll catch you next week, Adam.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
It's the My Michelle Live podcast.
My Michelle Live Entertainment Review. Roll out the red carpet. Here's Michelle.
Yes, here is Michelle. Thank you, big voice guy. As we look at our weekend review, we get you entertained as well. Everything you need for the weekend, we pack into this podcast. And on top of everything, after the show today, you will be officially plugged in.
I'm pretty cool. Plugging you into the movies, this is Adam Holz.
And now we're on video, and so he can't cringe when I play this. The man who never has a bad hair day, Adam Holz.
I'm having a bad hair life, but it's actually a beautiful thing. I shaved my head in 1996, and I haven't been to a barber since. And
I've been thinking about it until COVID hit, and then it didn't really matter anymore, right?
Who cares? I mean, honestly, we're all on video. We all look 10 pounds fatter on video.
That's all right.
So here we are.
And we all probably are because of lockdown. So there you go as well.
Right.
We get you plugged into the movies and so much more. In fact, Adam represents pluggedin.com. They do movies. They do television shows. They review YouTube channels, music, video games, and books. Pretty much pop culture all on one site. And the focus is something that you don't get out there. You can get people's opinions, and you can, hear. And Adam, we talk opinion at times.
Well, I have no shortage of opinions. You will get them.
But you go deeper, and you let folks know for their families what to expect. You don't tell them what to think. You give them the tools to think and decide for their families. And I love it. We've been doing this for some time. And today, we're going to talk more than movies. There's some TV shows as well to connect with and much more. And I just want to say, WandaVision is getting really interesting.
Oh, my word. Loving WandaVision. So
crazy.
Each episode, I'm like, what are they going to do now? And I'm not going to spoil last week's, but I think minds were blown last week again on this show. They keep, insert meme here, that one with the guy's head, doing that.
Head explodes.
No, it's fantastic. And I also love from a plugged in perspective that they really haven't pushed the boundaries content wise. I mean, you've got a smattering of profanity and, an occasional slightly off color joke, but not even much of that really. So as superhero shows go, it's a good one. You could mostly watch it with your kids. It's gotten a little bit creepier here and there, but still relatively clean by 2021 TV standards.
Indeed. So WandaVision for some people, seriously, they watched the first episode and then the second episode went, okay, this is really stupid. If I wanted to watch a black and white sitcom, I'd look at old I Love Lucy's,
right.
Or Father Knows Best. Thank you very
Dick
much.
Van Dyke or something like that.
What the heck? But
yeah.
But if you engage in WandaVision, you have to realize that you're going to see things that you're not going to realize you're seeing. There's a deeper story, and they take you deeper each episode. It's imaginative, and for those who are engaged with the Marvel Universe, there are tie-ins from other movies and other shows. There's a tie-in that will take place, from what I understand, with the Winter Soldier and Falcon. So that movie will be coming out. That was made first, actually. So there is a kind of a logical crossover that many fans might understand or get. But here is what is good to me. They do that. without losing an audience who hasn't marveled or been entrenched in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, and honestly, Elizabeth Olsen is just a revelation. Now, I say that having seen a bunch of films she's been in. I've never seen her in a bad role. She just has one of those faces that she does stuff with.
Oh,
like
weird.
A serial killer, but she does stuff with her face that really, I mean, she's remarkable and she pulls it off. Like there are a lot of actresses that couldn't pull off what she is doing as Wanda Maximoff, and Paul Bettany's great too, but half the time he's in, red makeup on his face, so it's not quite in the same territory in terms of what he is.
I think he is a classic actor. He, to me, has always been a very, very classic actor in the classic regard, meaning that it's not just about a pretty face, and I'm not judging his face, but he excuse me. I don't know if he is indeed, but he seems like a classically trained actor where it's all about the acting. You see that a lot in British actors, and that's kind of a bummer that they're always shipped over here and taking the lead roles, and it's because that's where they put the emphasis. Can I just stop right here and say Benedict Cumberbatch? He is not the poster boy for, can I say the word hotness? But you adore him.
He's got that voice, right?
I mean, voice. Yeah.
It's his voice. You just want to listen. He could read the phone book if anybody still had a phone book. It would be great.
Yeah, that ages us right there. Boom. Thank you very much.
I know, right? What's a phone book, Dad? I don't know.
Phone book. People used to have little black books too, so millennials look that up. There you go. I'm not gonna divulge what that is. All right. So let's talk for a moment some other television shows. You and I obviously couple of woohoos for WandaVision. Wow. Yes. If you haven't seen it, I think your family will enjoy it. And there's other TV shows. I'm looking at the plugged in page right now. One thing I was hoping we could talk about is Young Rock.
Yeah. Young Rock is a show that is exactly what you would think it is. It's like, is that about The Rock? Yes, it is about The Rock when he was young. And it's sort of an imaginative looking back at his life. The series is set in 2032. Rock is running for president, and we sort of get this flashback to, what he might have been like as a kid. And this is a pretty typical network sitcom in that you're going to get some language. You're going to get, a slightly dirty joke here or there. It's not terrible. It's not great from a content perspective. It's just sort of right in the middle.
It is. And if you like The Rock, you might find some of it charming.
Yeah.
I think
that's the draw.
I didn't hate it, but I went in going, what's the real purpose of this?
Well, if your name is on the marketing materials, quote, I didn't hate it. It's what's the phrase, damning with faint praise, It sort of feels like of all the sitcoms made this year, this is one of them. So
yeah. And The Rock is a good guy. He's a charming guy. The watching stories, whether true or not, about his growing up, some of them are funny and it can be endearing. So if you're a Rock fan, you might like it, but it's if I didn't watch it again, I think I would go on with my life and maybe even succeed.
You would probably be okay. So as long as we're talking about TV, now if you're a hardcore fan, you've already watched it. But if you somehow missed it, When Calls the Heart season 8 started last weekend.
Okay. Yeah.
We don't have a review up, but it's coming. So if you're wondering what we think about it, hold your breath and it will come. But this is a story that is produced by Michael Landon Jr. And it actually feels in some ways, in a really broad way, not too far removed from Little House on the Prairie. It's about a Canadian town I think early 20th century, late 19th century, early 20th century, because they have cars. And it's just, kind of a throwback period piece drama of the relationships between all of these people in this little town of Hope Valley. I think it's in British Columbia in the show. And if you want something nice with characters that you like we started the show, there's one main character, and I'm not sure how you pronounce her last name. It's either Erin Krakow or Krakow. Do you know how her last name is produced?
I don't know.
Well, anyway, she's like the main character, and she's one of the producers and writers. It's kind of her show, and she's in love with two guys, and one is sort of scoundrelish, maybe. We're not quite sure what his deal is, and the other's a Rocky Mountain, whatever they are. They wear the red coats. The Mountie.
A Mountie. He's a Mountie.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're literally, when they're in relationship with each other, we're cheering for the Mountie and we're booing the other guy. I mean, it's like watching When Calls the Heart with my daughters and my wife is like a full contact sport. So if you have watched it before and you didn't know it was coming back, it's back, and it's just as delightful as the previous 7 seasons, which we have completely binged in the last year or so.
There you go. Right. And I've watched the past. I'm not going to lie. In the first few seasons, obviously Elizabeth has a child. She was married before to another Mountie named Jack.
Yes.
When
who died.
he decided to exit the show, I just thought, oh, that's sad. I don't watch this for sad. I'm not watching it anymore. So I took a hiatus. Right. I'm ready to go back. It really is a charming family show.
It's really great.
I know that Little House on the Prairie is now canceled. And I'm sure you know that, right?
I know that.
Yeah. Because
and the Waltons is also canceled.
My gosh, my favorite. And why was the Waltons canceled again?
Well, I mean, it was canceled 40 years ago. Yes, why was the Waltons canceled again? I don't know, I don't know. We could speculate.
Probably they have a strong faith element. That's the only thing I can see. There's no races. I know that the hard thing is understanding that when you look at period pieces, now we're making period pieces like Bridgerton, strong sexual content, by the way, but Bridgerton.
Oh, yes.
And other period pieces that we're remaking, like Hamilton, and making it multicultural. And while I think there's a place for that, you lose the historical content.
Right. No,
and
that's
when
exactly right.
It's not in context, you lose the ability to learn from the mistakes made. Little House on the Prairie, for example, was made. It was written by Laurel Ingalls Wilder about 3 years after slavery was abolished. So you get a wonderful look at what it looked like to transition, and how there were some people that looked at people as people, and others who were still backwards. I don't get it, but you won't have any of that conflict in When Calls the Heart. So
no, you won't. You've just got
snowflakes.
Wonderful story that you don't have to worry. Is this thing going to go off the rails in ways that I'm reaching for the remote to mute it or to change the channel?
So charming. So charming.
And there aren't very many shows on today that you can really say that about. Even stuff that's on network TV, I mean, where we have gotten to is there's an expectation of a certain amount of profanity, of crudity, and on some of the dramas, you get a lot of violence, and it's even amazing what they can get away with in terms of sexual content. You may not have frontal nudity, but you certainly know what's going on. That's for sure.
Yeah, there's some things that are just have become a social given. That if you are interested in someone, you sleep with them. If you work with someone, you'll probably end up sleeping with them. If it's just like what one of the things that's actually on Plugged In that you review in TV is 9/11, and I find that of all the emergency shows, I find it really well done, and their stories are interesting. Their calls are unusual, and in that it's fun to watch. You care about the characters, but you always wonder, why does everyone inbred sleeping with each other all the time? That doesn't necessarily happen in real life.
Yeah, and you also have to say to yourself, I have worked a lot of places. There were never this many stunningly beautiful people at the places that I have ever worked, let alone the fire department. You know?
Well, you're obviously in the wrong line of work, and everybody who works with you right now is going, great. Thanks, Adam. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe half of them are stunning, but there's the other half that are anchoring. I told one of my coworkers the other day, I said, we need to do a podcast, and we can call it the Middle-Aged White Bald Guy Podcast.
Canceled.
You got to play the hand you're dealt. Why just avoid the reality here?
Oh, you're a charmer right there. Oh, so we talked a bit of television. Maybe it's time to delve into some movies.
Yes. And you and I, when we talk, Michelle, usually I talk from the perspective of reviews that we have already published, because as a movie review outlet, we typically get stuff early. This is a weird week in that our two biggest movies this week are Tom and Jerry and Bigfoot Family, which I know, right after Star Wars comes Tom and Jerry. People are waiting with bated breath.
Yes.
Yet been able to screen those. The studios have not gotten us screeners ahead of time, which is usually a tell that these are not going to be Oscar caliber films. So those reviews up by sometime later this weekend. But one of the other things I wanted to talk about, each year at Plugged In, we do what we call our Plugged In Music Awards. Plugged In Movie Awards. We don't do music awards. And we pick nominees in 4 different categories: Best Children's Film, Best Films for Teens, for Adults, and Best Christian Movies. And here's how the process works. We put the nominations on our blog, and those went up this week. They are all there, and we invite people to vote. And in a couple of weeks, we will do a vote as a team. We're actually filming it. It'll be on our Plugged In Show podcast, so you can see our deliberations. So we'll have a Plugged In pick for each one of those categories. And then later on, we'll announce the reader's pick as well. And so we just like taking a look back over the year and saying, what were some of the best things that came out that families with children of different ages might want to engage in? So that is all up on our blog right now, and we can talk as much about that as you feel like.
Yeah, I'm interested in some of the big picks that we can look at. It makes it fun for the audience as you're listening to watch these films and weigh in. What do you
absolutely
think? So that's part of the whole fun of it. Make your picks, and I'd like to hear from you too. So you can find us at MyMichelleLive.com, where we'll also have links, of course, as always, to Adam Holz, because he's pretty cool.
And I am pretty cool. Tell my friends from high school, because it only took me 40 years after graduating to get there, but whatever. No, I'm not bitter much.
So let's talk about some of the picks from some of these categories.
Yeah. Let's start out with best movies for kids. The 5 movies that we picked this year in our best movies for kids. You know what? My computer is wigging out. Give me just a second.
No worries. We're just live. It's okay.
It's got one of those little, the little track things with the ball on it in the middle of the keyboard. And I've used it so much it's worn through. It's now just a sharp little stick, and it doesn't work very well. Anyway, that's a lot of information about the laptop that I'm working on. So our 4 best movies for kids this year are Black Beauty, which I didn't know this until we did this version. We reviewed this version. The book came out in 1877. I think there have been 4 or 5 different movie iterations.
What?
Wow. Story that has been around a long time. And has come at it again. And it's a great story about a girl and a horse. So Crude's the New Age. Yeah. No, it really is a classic. And I think, honestly, how can you go too wrong with a beautiful horse? That's what I always say.
and this
My
last
kids were here, they would say, Dad, you have never actually said that. And I would say, yeah, but I'm going to start saying it from now on.
This last iteration, incarnation, whatever you'd like to call it, is pretty charming as well. Pretty cool, beautifully done, heartwarming, just a really good watch. And can I just be honest? When you see something remade and remade, and then remade, and then, oh, it's been a year and a half or 2 years, and then remade, Spider-Man, I don't know, whatever. Right? You're like, okay, I've seen this. But this is actually worth the see. It is.
It's a lovely story, and I think there are people who like horse movies and people who like dog movies. And if you're a horse movie person, I think you'll enjoy this. And it's one that's really suitable for kids too.
Little Women. There's another one that's remade and remade and remade and remade. And I'll tell you what, this last one, even though it's always a beautiful story and I will always watch it, this last one was just a little preachy, not in a good way. It's women independence, and that's really not in the spirit of the film. But once again, with cancel culture, we have to remake everything in our own image, do we not?
Oh boy. I mean, I think we could go 90 minutes just talking about the insanity of cancel culture. And I mean, every week it seems like there are new people who have in some way stepped afoul of very tight orthodoxy on what you can do and what you cannot do. And what
we talked last week about Gina Carano and Disney, and that is one of the saddest things because they essentially proved her point. And unfortunately, in our day and age where we have the wealth of human knowledge at our fingertips, I still hear people saying, well, she was comparing Republicans to the Jews during the Holocaust. And I was like, well, you drew that conclusion. What she really said was, look, the Nazis didn't wake up one day and say, hey, what do you want to do today? Let's round up the Jews. It was a process where people started hating each other, canceling each other. And is that where we're kind of looking at today? We need to be careful. Now, I want to bring this back because this is fascinating. It has a lot to do with the topic of entertainment because it's happened before in our country. It was during the McCarthy era, and it really did affect people in entertainment.
Right. No, and obviously during that era, it was the Red Scare. And so you had this sort of, I'll use the phrase witch hunt in quotes, where there was a suspicion that someone was participating in that political ideology, they were blacklisted. And there are all sorts of layers of ways that we can think about it. But, with the original witch hunts back in Salem, it just became, if there was a hint of suspicion, you're done. And there's no conversation. There's no ability to deal with nuance. There's no ability to even acknowledge that, well, what if somebody just has a different perspective? And I think that we're seeing something broadly similar now in that if you don't toe a progressive political and, cultural party line, it doesn't take much to end up on the wrong list.
No. And I think we've seen it from a religious perspective. There's the idea of stay away from even the appearance of evil. Do not be unevenly yoked. And so it's okay then we justify canceling because, well, they're evil. And that's what we're doing all through the political spectrum as well. But when there is an element of faith, and I think this is really important, when there's an element of faith, Jesus dined with the people that everyone else canceled.
Absolutely.
We have, go ahead, Adam. That's a huge, important point.
You want to talk about somebody being canceled. I mean, let's talk about Jesus being canceled. The culture wanted to cancel him because he was a perceived threat to the status quo on many levels. And that's just one layer. Obviously, there's a deeper theological conversation to be had there. But the ruling Jewish hierarchy wanted him gone. because he didn't play by the rules, and he didn't say the right thing, and he didn't do the right thing.
It was the religion of the day, and our religion of the day is politics. But here's the interesting thing, though. Even as Jesus hung out with the canceled people, when you really indulge in faith, you see freedom and acceptance, because God accepts you as you are. And you see people who really walk in faith, not religion, but faith, are the very people who will say, yeah, you think differently. Your morality, moral code may be different than mine. The way that you choose to live, who you love, what you identify as, is different. But you know what? I love you. I love you. And I think that's something that affects, I know we're talking reviews, but let's bring it home, Adam. When we go too far down this road, it really does start to affect even something as simple as what we watch in the theater or on our television screens.
Well, yeah, because those messages, those worldviews, and those narratives permeate everything that is happening. And so every time we watch a TV show, every time we watch a movie, and I try to work with this with my kids, it's, we talk a lot about content. It's got X number of sex scenes or profanities. Yeah. Those are really important things. But I think that we've also got to focus on the big picture of, well, what's the worldview? What is this piece of artistic entertainment? And it can be songs or video games or a YouTube channel. Everybody has a perspective, and they're communicating something from that perspective. And we need to be willing to take the time to actively engage with that, and to help our kids engage with it, so that we can understand, there's a point of view being communicated here. Let's talk about that. Maybe we agree with it. Maybe we like it. Maybe we don't like it. But I think that when we just get sort of ghettoized, and it's like, well, these people are okay and this stuff is all terrible, we actually lose the ability to think critically. And we need to be training up our children to think critically, as opposed to just, does this soundbite put them in this camp or this camp? We've short-circuited our ability to think critically in so many ways, and entertainment plays a role in that.
It's time for us to look to our yays and nays, the good, the bad, the ugly, the pick of the week, and the put it in the trash pick of the week. Would you like to go with the pick of the week first? Let's
go with the pick of the week first, and I'm going to let you go first on this one.
You got it. So,
as I think about my pick of the week,
you got to mull it over, pray on it a little bit, do a little meditation. And okay, yeah, I gotcha. Take your mo. So my pick of the week is a kind of a silly one. It's Sonic the Hedgehog. It's now available. It's free for those who have a subscription, so you don't have to pay extra to see Sonic the Hedgehog. And, maybe it is not Oscar worthy, like we're not expecting Tom and Jerry, but you watch the film and it's in some ways silly. Jim Carrey's character is a bit over the top, and let me just set the stage. If you don't know what Sonic is, a long time video game made into a movie. The big controversy wasn't anything content-wise. It was, how did Sonic eventually end up looking? Because his first creation was so creepy, they had to go back and remaster it. Sonic the Hedgehog is it's a kid family movie, in some ways a little over the top, but it's fun and it's distracting, and it's for me, it's the kind of movie you put on in a big screen in the backyard, invite your neighbors over, and just have fun. You're not going to be indoctrinated into groupthink. You're not you're just going to walk away going, okay, that was fun. I had a fun night. My pick of the week.
My pick of the week is take us back to 2003. And I had to go back that far because it's been a pretty quiet week movie-wise, so I don't have anything new that's out. But as long as we're talking about Paul Bettany, let's talk about his movie with Russell Crowe, Master and Commander. Incomparable director Peter Weir. And this is, as you might have guessed, a movie about a boat and a journey that is taken. And honestly, I don't think I have seen it since 2003. But the reason I'm picking it is that on Netflix and Amazon and all these services, each month there's new stuff that comes and goes. So it's not a new movie, but it's new on Netflix this month. So you should be able to watch that. And it's a terrific drama. And I actually remember I was going through something really, really difficult in my life at that particular moment. I remember sitting in the theater watching Master and Commander in December of 2003. And it was just a terrific escape. And I think Russell Crowe at the top of his game and Paul Bettany at the top of his game. I mean, two guys with great accents on a ship. What more do you want?
Yeah, it's not that it's not a family film, but there's not it is very much a drama.
Yes.
There is some action, but it's not necessarily action the kids are going to get into. But
Right.
you'd have to know your kids in order, and you can, these old films, you can go to pluggedin.com and they give you a nice long review. It's so much more. I've always thought Plugged In was important. I think it's even more important now when most of us are at home a lot more. It gives us a chance to go, okay, instead of scrolling through Netflix and Prime and Disney and whatever to try to find something and wasting so much time, by the end of the time you find something, you could have watched a feature film. You can go to Plugged In, and this is what I do, Adam. I go to Plugged In, and I scroll through some of the old films and go, oh, that might be good, or oh, I forgot about that, or oh, Master and Commander, and then it's a little easier that way.
And I want to do a bonus pick, which is really like 18 picks. Again, come over to our blog and check out our Plugged In movie review picks, Plugged In movie award picks, and all of those different categories. We sort of started with the kids category, and we took a sidetrack and a sidetrack. So I'm segueing back briefly. I'm not going to read through each of those lists, but there's some terrific stuff that we have picked out from the last year and it's a year where, unlike most years, there's a lot of stuff on here that you might have not have seen because theaters haven't been open. So it's been an unusual last 12 months, that's for sure.
Yeah, it has indeed. So a good thing to do. And let's spend a little more time next week talking about the categories and the movies. Now it's time for, maybe you should stay away from it.
You know, unfortunately, this is one of those weeks where I have a long list of stay and in fact, it's so many that I'm hard pressed to choose just one. But
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
There's a new a new TV show on Netflix called Behind Her Eyes.
It is that thing is disturbing and creepy and
I think actually you mentioned it last week, but it's one we have our review up for now, and anything that would blow David Cronenberg's mind is certainly going to blow the rest of our minds, and not in a good way. But it's Eve Hewson is in it, Bono's daughter, and it's gotten a lot of buzz, and it's very edgy. And sometimes things in our culture, edgy is code for we have gone to new extremes because we're also desensitized that we're just trying to get your attention. And this one sort of feels like it's in that neck of the woods.
Yeah, you can start with the first, oh my goodness. If you even make it through the first episode, because there's that, I don't know, there's an intellectual draw to it. There is, to a degree. It's mysterious and what's really going on here, and you want to figure it out. So they cleverly do draw you in. That's well done. But the content
it's well done.
is disturbing and graphic, and when you make it to the end, it's so depressing, so depressing that you wish you never indulged.
The twist is, ooh. I mean, it's just gross.
Yeah, it's gross. It's sad, and and the reason it's important is that not only are you investing your time, but you and I bring this up again and again. And if you're new to this Adam Michelle hangout thing, we talk about the redemptive quality, and I'm not just talking on a spiritual level, but when you watch a film, the disturbing matter can sometimes be endured. And I'm not talking over the top disturbing, but disturbing matter needs to have some kind of redemptive ending in order to justify it, in order for you to walk away and go, gosh, I feel changed by that. I feel moved by that. I understand that. The world is disturbing, but there is, when you see messages of hope, it kind of brings it into context. And that's what I need to be able to watch something disturbing. There would have to be some pretty redemptive qualities though.
Now this one is an exercise in disturbing for disturbing's sake. You just sort of feel like somebody woke up one morning and said, I'm going to tell a story, and we're going to just keep twisting this thing. And there's
no feeling good after that. Like there's you really need an emotional and mental shower. So I'm kind of with you on that. Another one, it's being pushed on Prime, is Coming to America 2. Now that's not going to be out till March 5th, but the obvious suggestion is they're playing Coming to America 1, and that was back in the 80s. Arsenio Hall, Eddie Murphy, big names from the 1980s.
Sorry, I have to get my Arsenio on.
And maybe you forget after all these years, or maybe you haven't seen it. Eddie Murphy, obviously very funny, but that movie is I'm sorry, there's some funniness to it, but it's really highly inappropriate, and not even that well done, and really not even that funny. So I got about 5 minutes in and went, oh, come on.
Yeah. And, I think it brings up a great point as we look back over old movies, and you and I have talked about this more than once. We just straight up forget what was in those movies.
Or if you're really young, maybe goes over your head, but don't think for a moment that it doesn't affect you.
No, absolutely. But even as you think about movies to play for your kids and, oh, hey, let's watch this classic from the 80s, and you get in and you're like, what in the world? I don't remember this.
I remember a story from a friend who said that they wanted to watch with her in-laws came over and they saw that The Wedding Singer was on. They're like, oh, 1980s. That's, because that was her era, her big era.
Yeah.
So she's like, oh, let's sit down and watch it. She's watching it with her pastor, father-in-law, and mother, and going, I don't remember this part.
Who picked this movie?
Or Back to the Future. Those three.
Oh, Back to the Future. Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters is drenched with sexual innuendo. Now, it's not graphic. It's not explicit. But it's like, oh, that's kind of nasty. Oh, that was gross.
And that's not to say that it's not hilariously funny.
It's funny. I'm not trying to be a prude, but we can forget.
But you watch it with your kids and you forget.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Goonies. I've talked about the Goonies. Man, those little kids use the S word 100 times. I mean, it's just constant. And I don't.
And speaking of Goonies,
children talking like that.
Can we end on a good note? We talked about this film a few weeks ago, and you have to maybe help me remember it. It's like Goonies set in Hawaii, and what's the name of that?
It's a Hawaiian word for family.
Ohana.
Yes, that's it. I was looking for it, but you got there before me. Yes, Finding Ohana. So
Finding
if you want to
Ohana. I love the film. I love that. It was a lot of fun. It feels very Hawaiian, and you get the real Hawaii, not the tourist Hawaii. You get that Ohana feel, that feeling of family, the aloha, and it's like Goonies. Just I think even better.
Yeah, absolutely. That seems like a good place to stick the landing, lest I wander off into some diatribe.
It's the redemptive.
we have diatribes, we have conversation because this media is so influential. And at Plugged In, we want to help people have the resources they need to make the good decisions for their family. And no two families are the same. It's not one size fits all, but you need to know your kids and be students of them and understand how they're wired and how they interact with story and content. And we want to be really your first stop in terms of equipping you with the tools that you need to do that well. And Michelle's gracious enough to have me on her podcast. And we also have a podcast, The Plugged In Show. So this week on our Plugged In Show podcast, we had a great conversation about the idea, it feels so right, it can't be wrong. So you can check that out, the Plugged In Show.
And Adam's never had me on his podcast, so I am actually nicer than he is.
We need to rectify that, Michelle. Thank you for that shout out, and we will reciprocate one way or another soon.
Oh, Adam, it is always a pleasure, my brother, to have you lead us right into the weekend. And, of course, go to pluggedin.com. You can find links at pretty much everywhere you're listening to us right now.
I'm pretty cool. Plugging you into the movies, this is Adam Holz.
Thanks for listening to the Weekend Review. Next week, we'll be talking more music. You'll hear the Riz Report, get you plugged in with Adam Holz, and so much more. So we look forward to having you. And in all things, we look for the God story. If you're in search of who God is and what it means to you, well, join us and log on to MyMichelleLive. Send me an email to talk. I'm Michelle. Thanks for listening. For more fun, go to MyMichelleLive.com.